It's time now for the John Harris Podcast on the AirNetwork.net. Now, here's sports journalist extraordinaire, John Harris on the Air Network.
Welcome to the John Harris Podcast on the AirNetwork.net. I'm John Harris, joined by the great Dave T. Thomas, NFL scouting draft guru. Dave, how you doing?
Hey, buddy, how you doing? I think maybe we should open up with the Pink Floyd song, Money, because that's what a lot of veteran free agents are going home with right now. But I'm telling you, John, if you're a running back, if you're a quarterback, you may want to hang around with your new wide receiver on the team because that guy is going to definitely be picking up the dinner bill.
Well, let's talk about it. I know one of the things I want to get into on this show is the fact that you're doing some free agent work, doing reports for the NFL. I want to get into that and what those findings, what you're finding out with free agency. After the first week and the big names, so-called big names, come off the board, the fans tend to lose interest. But according to you, now is the time that you really focus on free agency. There's a lot of teams now are starting to kind of jump into the fray and maybe looking at the second level, so-called second level free agents.
Well, the funny thing is I'm known for my college football, and the next thing you know, the teams that I'm dealing with, they got a call from Big Blue up in New Jersey and says, Dave, we need you to do some research for us on some veterans. Okay, started doing that. Next thing I know, I got every team and their mother calling. We started doing a thing what we're calling market value on these players. What it is how much money should the guy get out there based on production? You know me, man. I'm not the type of guy that sits out there and lives on a guy on potential. I got to see a guy producing on the football field. But the money that's going on out there this year, John, if you're a wide receiver, if you're a defensive end, if you're a cornerback, you're walking away with buku bucks. Meanwhile, on the running backs can't find anything. Do you realize that right now there's only one running back that signed a free agent contract that even got a deal more than 2 years? And that's Danny Woodhead, who's coming back off of a bad leg. And meanwhile, Baltimore, ungodly, turns around and hands the guy $8.8 million.
I thought this was an interesting free agent signing. New England, Burkhead from Cincinnati signed him. And with the money I hear they're paying him, it looks like he's going to be the starting running back next year. Is that correct?
No, the whole thing what comes down to them, they want to pound and pound. So when you got Burkhead and you have Blunt running with that ball, you're going to put some punishment out on the football field. You got White coming in as your third down back, a good scat back there. So what they're doing is they're going by committee. But then it shows, John, if you look at what's going on the free agent market right now, the average take-home pay for a running back that has signed a deal is $1.32 million a year. In comparison, the cornerbacks are walking away on an average right now of $9.77 million a year. Wide receivers, the top five, are pulling in $9 million a year alone. The money's out there. You even look on the defensive line. The defensive line, $7.74 million for a defensive tackle, $7 million for a defensive end. However, if you want to protect that franchise quarterback, double up, $11.87 million average for the top five offensive linemen that are signed.
Mamas, don't raise your babies to be running backs, or at least NFL running backs. Let's look at two of the running backs, one who just found a home and one who's still looking for a home, Adrian Peterson. And
you mean Henny Youngman are the running backs out there? I mean, between him and Darrelle Revis, they're probably going to be sitting on Revis's Island next year eating popcorn, watching it on TV. Hey, if Adrian Peterson gets fat, at least he could turn around and look at Eddie Lacy's contract. Look what Seattle did. Eddie Lacy shows up 30 pounds over his playing weight from last year. 267 pounds he measured in at during his interview with the Seattle Seahawks. What do? They give him $5.5 million. That comes out to $20,599.25 a pound. That's a lot of money to spend out there, John. I don't know about you, man. I know Kobe steak is a lot of money, but that's a lot of money to pay for that meat.
So what is that saying? I mean, is it saying that there's no running backs out there, or they're in love with the big fat running back?
Well, if I was everybody and I needed a running back, maybe wisely everybody's holding on to their money to see what's coming out in this year's draft. I don't care what anybody says. I know that he's got that thing off the football field, but Mixon to me is a top running back. He's the only one that I could be safe to go in this and say 5 years down the road, he'll still be producing at the 1,000-yard level. I look at Fournette. I'm a little scared with Fournette. I look at the guy, I mean, not only the ankle problems, but the weight issues. His weight issue to me reminds me of what Lacey's going through. You look at McCaffrey. I love McCaffrey, but there's a whole lot more ways I'm going to use McCaffrey than give him the ball in the backfield 25 times.
So with Latavius Murray, signing with Minnesota, what's the deal? What are teams skeptical of Peterson with his age, his injury? What's the deal with him? Has he lost it? Has he lost the berth?
Well, the whole thing comes down to what have you done for me lately? And if you go back and look at last year's thing, well, the whole thing comes down to two. You got to look at the performance bonus payout. All right, he only paid in 3 games, but he went home with a check of $64 in his hand. I laughed when I saw him and Tony Romo just going home with $64.
They literally got $64 for performance.
Literally $64.11.
Wow!
It probably costs more to send the check out than the money that was on it.
Wow. So you mentioned Darrelle Revis. I thought it was kind of interesting. This is a guy who, a year or two ago, was saying he's the best cornerback of all time. Now he's basically saying he's willing to make the move to safety, and it sounded like he was begging to come to the Steelers. I'd love to play for my hometown team. What is your take on him?
I've never been a Darrelle Revis fan from day one. He could do his Darrelle Revis and everything else. Like they say out there, oh, he had these INTs. Oh, he's a physical hitter. Yeah, but you go back and look at his career. This is a guy that's averaged 7 touchdowns allowed per season. I don't know, man. That's 49 points up on the board for a guy that's supposed to be the greatest ever. I love these, how can I put it, these cocky guys that come out there that say what they want to say while they're making a buku bucks, but as soon as they start stumbling and fumbling, it's like Henny Youngman. Hey, brother, could you spare a dime?
I remember when I covered the Steelers, and it was interesting. The year that Darrelle Revis came out from Pitt, everybody at the Steelers knew Darrelle Revis because the Pitt trained the same facility that the Steelers trained at. The Steelers took Lawrence Timmons that year, their first-round pick, who just signed a free agent deal with Miami. And I remember all the talk was that, the Steelers were going to take Darrelle Revis, but the Jets jumped up ahead of him and took him. I never bought that story because if the Steelers really wanted Darrelle Revis, they would have got Darrelle Revis because I think it was a pick or two ahead. I don't think they wanted him. I know I had a conversation with John Mitchell a few years after that, the defensive line coach, and he all but inferred that they were not really enamored with players that were really chasing the big dollars. They believed that the value, like with an Ike Taylor, would come with winning championships. And that's where you build your value. And I think subtly, they felt that he was always more concerned with the dollars and getting the big contract. And make no mistake about it, he has been well paid throughout his career.
Oh, most definitely. But then I have to sit out there and say, too, is that this is a game. This is a young man's game. Now, all of a sudden, I'll move to safety. He'll move anywhere where he could pick up a paycheck next year. The paycheck will probably be 7 figures, but it's going to be very low numbers. Do you take a chance on a guy? If you do, it's got to be on a 1-year deal. I mean, we're not talking about Charles Woodson or Brian Dawkins type of transformation over here. I know he wants to come into the Steelers, but if I'm the Steelers and if I need a safety that bad, I'll wait to the end of round 1 where I could take that kid out of Connecticut. I take that kid out of Connecticut. I'm saving a few zeros that I got to pay out over the next few years.
I don't see him as a fit with the Steelers, to be honest with you, either in the locker room or on the field at this point.
Well, the whole thing, too, is do you think he's going to take less than $2 million a year? And how can I justify giving Revis more money than I'm giving Rodney Harrison when they're both at the same station in life?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you might have more insight into that. I don't get the impression that the Steelers are really, anxious to sign him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see where he fits. Other than the fact
they got $12 million in their pool, John, for their rookies, the kids that they're going to be drafting. That leaves them only with $6,750,000 under the cap level right now. So you're going to fit into Revis in there, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they turn around and see what's in the state right now and go after the guy that Philadelphia cut because Connor Barwin is ideal to handle that edge rush and give him that third outside linebacker.
Yeah, where are the the name Connor Barwin has come up. Dante Hightower re-signed with New England. He did visit with the Steelers, but we felt that was window dressing all along.
Well, the Steelers didn't give him cupcakes, so, he had to go home.
The Jets gave him cupcakes.
Did you see that?
Right?
The Jets gave him cupcakes. They had the Jumbotrons going and everything. They bragged that they gave him a monster deal bigger than New England. And meanwhile, it came out that their deal was $1.75 million per year less than what he got out of New England.
Oh, wow. So why would he go to the Jets? I mean, why would you go to a team that's not nearly as good and go to a team where you're going to make money, playoff money, and maybe get another Super Bowl ring, which will enhance your value not only during your career, but after your career? Look at all those former players who are Super Bowl champions who are now like on all the networks doing TV. I mean, having a Super Bowl ring is almost a guarantee to get a TV job when your career is over.
After the Super Bowl was won, New England turned around to Hightower and told him, listen, we got a 3-year deal on the table for you right now at $27 million. He went out there and said, see, somebody loves me. Now he's going home with 43 and change on 4. So wow. It worked for him.
It did work. It did work. Let's go back to Carter Barwin. What does he bring that would help? What do you see the Steelers from an I mean, I love James Harrison. It's great that he's still going at it. It just scares me that a guy who's going to be, 39 next year, he's like your edge rusher. I mean, what can a Carter Barwin do for the Steelers, and do they have the wherewithal to get him, to sign him?
Well, I say somebody comes up and gives him a 2-year deal for $6 million. They're going to end up with a great little talent. You got to go back and look at what happened. This is a guy that is a classic 3-4 strong side outside linebacker. In 2015, 2016, he went to the Pro Bowl both years. During those 2 years, he racked up 22 sacks total. They move him to a 4-3 defensive line. I had to do a research for the Pats on him because the Pats are interested in the kid. He gave up an average of 73 pounds a game against the guys that were blocking against him by playing on the defensive line. So you turn around and look at what he did and what he played with Philadelphia. Philadelphia says, well, it doesn't justify us keeping him, and that's right. But the thing is that a 3-4 team, that's what's going to get him. I say it comes down to 3 teams right now. A former Pittsburgh Steeler coaching great sitting in Tennessee who would want him bad, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Los Angeles Rams, where the coach that discovered him, Wade Phillips, is now running the defense. One of those 3 teams is walking away with Connor Barwin by the time this is all over with.
How would you rate the Steelers' chances to sign him?
Excellent, considering that I've been in his ear for about the last 2 weeks on Pittsburgh. Connor and I have, how could I put it, as strong of a relationship as I have with Ike.
Really?
And
so you
when
have a little bit more inside information on him. You know a little bit more about the whole process then.
Well, the whole thing comes down to, you got to realize, John, I mean, I got hundreds of players out there that I've adopted over the years. I've been doing this since 1968. I put my faith in these guys. I mean, John, I am not a religious type out there, man, but I put so much faith in Ike that if I put that same faith in God, I'd be spouting angels' wings right now. Well, you go back and ask Ike, and everybody and their freaking mother that went down to Louisiana wanted to see Charles Tillman. He was the girl on the dance floor that everybody wanted to dance with. Nobody wanted to see Ike. Well, Ike all of a sudden runs a 4.22. People started turning their heads. And look at the career that Ike gave. The whole thing with scouts today, John, is you put a commitment behind a ball player. You better stick your guns and stick with that guy all the way. And that's what I did with Connor. Well, look at Connor Barwin. Connor Barwin was a reserve tight end, moved to defensive end as a senior in Cincinnati. I told my agent, I said, you better get all over this guy's butt like toilet paper. The kid turned out, he ended up leading the NCAA that year in sacks. He ends up going in the second round. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. Look at J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt was a tight end at Western Michigan. Father says, we'll probably send him up to Wisconsin lacrosse. I said, let me make a call over to Alvarez. I called Alvarez. They bring him into Wisconsin. He only played 1 year there. Now they ended up with 3 Watts.
Wow. See, those are stories that I don't think a lot of people know about, who Dave T. Thomas is and his connections and the respect that he generates around the NFL. And that's one of the things that we're going to try to bring out and enhance and use that knowledge as much as we can to let the listeners on the airnetwork.net know, just what they're getting when they listen to Dave T. Thomas.
John, I'm not Kuiper. I'm not McShay. I'm not going to sit out there and say Morris losses indicate. You got to understand one thing. I probably turned down more shows to do during the week than a maid at a hotel. The thing is that I'm not out there to gain publicity for me. I go on shows where there's educated listeners out there. I go on shows in football towns. You're not going to hear me talking in St. Louis. You're not going to hear me talking in La La Land because those people out there, all they're doing is sitting down with their Mai Tais in their hands. I want the nits. I want the grits. I want those people that when they walk out in the street in 95-degree weather, they're still wearing their football jersey.
Yeah, well, that's definitely not La La Land.
No, and that's, if I'm going to talk to somebody and I'm going to talk intelligently to you and I'm going to tell you things out there, I want you to be able to comprehend it. I don't want you taking your term paper with crayons.
Well, I'm here in Northeast Ohio. I know Youngstown State had their pro day the other day. Joey Porter was attending and looking at Rivers, the edge rusher. I know we talked about him on the John Harris podcast last week. You were on there and you said that you saw that as a possibility, maybe a later round pick, not as a first round pick. But it's the fact that Joey Porter worked him out. They were at his pro day indicates some level of interest. I mean, it's right down the street, an hour drive, so they didn't lose anything by doing it, checking him out.
And if anybody walks over to Ohio University, they'd probably find the most underrated defensive end in this draft and bash him.
You like him. You've mentioned him more than once.
Love that guy. Oh, what a motor on him. He is so fun to watch on the football field. If he gets a patient coach behind him, you got the second coming of Richard Dent.
So we're jumping all over the map here, but I want to get back to Adrian Peterson. If your best, I know a couple weeks ago you were on the show and you thought that, you said Oakland. And now that Murray is gone, maybe could that be a destination for Adrian Peterson now to go with the Raiders?
He has no choice. Where else is he going to go? Look at the running back units on all of the other teams. Everybody's got blue-collar types. Meanwhile, you got Reggie McKenzie out there. He knows he needs to make a splash. I'm shocked that they let Murray walk, especially when Murray only ended up with 8.8 on a 3-year deal. I mean, you're telling me that what Murray did out there on the football field wasn't more $3 million a year out of your pocket? But if Murray got $3 million over there, Peterson has to see. This is a team that's not going to be kicking out money. If they let a guy like that go, a guy who's younger, a guy who is stronger, a guy who has less injuries out there on the football field, and both of them do have themselves a nice little medical record, Adrian Peterson is going to have to come in possibly at about a 1.5 deal with a whole load of incentives. That's all he's going to find on the table. If this was baseball, he'd be signing a minor league contract.
So for him and for players like him, like for Darrelle Revis, this is for him right now. Probably the hardest thing is getting his ego in check and accepting this reality. Because I don't think he's really been accepting it. And now he's getting to a point where if you want to play in the league next year, this is your reality. Nobody's
they're going to play in the league.
Yeah.
If they're going to play in the league, they're going to have to get a fake ID because they're going to have to show a birth certificate with a better date on it.
But the dude's made a lot of money. Okay. So, I mean, now you're on the back end of it. I guess that's why that's the way it goes for a running back. If there is still interest from a team, you better go with it.
All the way up to the Murray signing, Minnesota says, we could still come back and address the Peterson quote-unquote issue. That tells you, right, when your general manager is calling you an issue and he's not doing it with a smile on his face, you're out of town. You might as well get a hold of Mayflower and start loading the truck.
Yeah. So from free agents, he's the biggest name per se, Revis' biggest name per se, but as far as talent, quality, value on the free agent market, who are the biggest names that are still out there?
There's not much out there, John. I mean, you look at it right now, and it's like you're going to have to go scoop. I mean, if anybody's looking for an edge rusher or an outside linebacker, obviously it's Connor Baldwin. I mean, what else is sitting out there? You look at the defensive linemen that are sitting out there, and there's absolutely nothing. Right now, you were sitting out there saying, okay, we'll wait for the second wave. But when the second wave is like an offensive tackle like a King Dunlap or a Peterson or a Revis sitting out there, it's really not something for me to get my surfboard and going out in the ocean for.
So the best free agent signing is who?
Oh my God! Money-wise, I would have to say Kelly Campbell for the simple reason $60 million with $30 million guaranteed. That a boy for you. Good defensive end, but definitely not worth $15 million a year.
And the worst free agent signing.
Oh my God, Chicago, hands down, no doubt about it. The problem is, which one am I going to choose, Mike Glennon or Marcus Wheaton? All right, well, you got to sit back there and look at this. I mean, look what we ends up walking away with. It's at $6 million. That comes out to last year he had 4 receptions. That's $1.5 million a reception. If you go back and look at his best year in 2014 at 53 receptions, that means they're paying him $113,207.54 per catch. And then you go look at the Mike Glennon deal. I mean, here's a guy that was sitting around that was getting paid $4 million last year to hold the clipboard, and now he's getting paid $18 million to go out there and improve the adage I always say. Your number 2 quarterback looks simply sensational until he becomes your number 1.
They got rid of one problem, Jay Cutler, to bring in another one, Mike Glennon. Some teams are just perpetually destined for failure, and the Bears exhibit A. I mean, if I'm a Bears
look
fan,
at Cleveland.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be something up in the Midwest water. I mean, St. Louis loses 2 teams. Chicago is playing their wrong way Corrigan mode. Cleveland, oh my God, it's like we have 31 teams in the league, and then somebody let them in to balance out the schedule.
So I know you haven't been a big fan of this Moneyball thing with the Browns from the inception last year. This trade that was made to bring Osweiler in, to bring in money and get rid of money. What is your overall, just what are they doing in Cleveland? Oh, they're going to stockpile all these draft picks. You astutely noted that, okay, they had all these rookies last year and really only 2 have really developed or shown anything. Now you're going to bring in a whole bunch of more rookies this year. Just talk, where is Cleveland right now in this whole Moneyball, the Osweiler trade, the money under the cap, the draft picks? What is your take on all of that?
You got to laugh at the general manager. What's his name? Sashi Brown or something?
He's
bragging.
Yeah.
Well, 12 out of my 14 draft picks made the team, and we had another 14 rookies come off the street and make our team last year. How many games did you win? It doesn't matter how many new faces you get out there. The whole thing comes down to what shows up in the standings. And
well, you
now
have to
they're sitting. Well, you look at this thing. They spent $17 million in order to get a second-round draft pick in 2018. That's what it really came down to with the Osweiler trade. And now they're running out there, we're going to trade him again, and we're going to get more draft picks back. No matter if they trade him or not, John, they're going to take a cap hit of at least $9 million. Okay, they had the money to afford, but you have to sit back and equate $17 million gross, $9 million net for a second-round draft pick. I don't know. I look at my value board schedule for draft picks, and I don't even find too many first-round draft picks that are worth $9 million.
Okay, but this is how you have to justify just their whole philosophy, the Moneyball philosophy. You have to justify it by getting the draft picks, right? You have to do this almost. It's like this is the system that they've put in place to justify we've got to go out and get draft picks. We've got to go get more draft picks because this is how our Moneyball system works. We're going to bring in all this talent. We're going to dazzle you with this young talent. So they're basically following the script that they've already written.
Well, I think the funny part of it all, here I am, 40-some-odd years on the college route, never really cared for contracts and everything. All these players over there, Dave, why don't you become an agent? Now I got 2 teams that brought me in to have me assist them, and meanwhile, I'm showing them things on the salary cap, and they better watch out because if I keep on liking this veteran stuff next year, I'm opening up an agency.
So Brock
John,
Osweiler,
the money out there, it's so easy to do a veteran contract and get the money that you want out of these people, and it's called one thing, the big G word, guarantee.
Guarantee. So Brock, who wants Brock Osweiler? I mean, who? I mean, why would I trade for him if I know that they're going to probably have to cut him anyway? But who wants him? Does anybody want him?
Well, they're talking with Denver, which I find ridiculous because Elway really wants Romo. They're talking to the Jets. It's like the Jets right now have Christian Hackenberg. If they end up with Osweiler, they got matching bookends of the most horrible quarterbacks in the NFL. You got to look at what's going on. Well, the biggest thing on the story on the quarterbacks is he has not even received one phone call. My boy Colin Kaepernick.
Wow.
It not, you sit back and you say, is he being blackballed for his political venue? But then you go back and look at the last 2 years and break down his stats. There's nothing exciting about it. His new agent is arguing, well, he had 16 touchdowns last year and only 4 interceptions. But he was pulled in 3 games, and you go back and look at those 16 touchdowns, 12 of them came in the last 7 minutes of a contest, and in those contests, they were total blowouts. San Fran was losing anyway. So when you break down statistics that way, it doesn't look like this is a guy that's worth more than coming in as a backup, as a makeup on there with a $2 million salary. That's all he's going to find. You look at Jonathan Hankins up at the Giants. Great young defensive tackle. I'm on $10 million a year on a 5-year deal. His offer on the table, Miami told him, I'll give you $5 million on one. Me, I'm sitting out there and I'm looking at that and I'm Jonathan Hankins. I got to get a reality check. This situation is at a point, we're in our second week of veteran free agency and only 2 teams have even picked up the phone for you. Only 1 team invited you to come down and they're offering you $45 million less than what you want.
So why did Colin Kaepernick, he was under contract, correct? So he was due to make some money next year, whether he wanted to be with the 49ers.
$14,950,000. That's what
that was guaranteed.
Right, but he wanted out of the deal. He pouted, he moaned, he kneeled, he did everything he could. He grew his hair like a chia pet. Anything that he could to get out of San Francisco. I was surprised that he didn't knock over the lantern and burn down the city on his way out.
So why would you give up $14 million, dude? Sit me on the bench, cut me. I'm not giving that money up, okay? I worked too hard to get it, and I don't know if I'm going to get it out there anywhere else. So you're going to have to pay me. That's my revenge on you. Pay me.
I call it female whispers. That's his girlfriend out there whispering in his ear, honey, come on, we could get you more money someplace else. All of a sudden, oops, he's not going to the bank anymore. Now what he's going to do?
Time to get a new girlfriend.
He called the other day. Let me tell you one thing. His number is sitting on my call waiting system. He might as well be waiting for that call to come back to him. There are players out there that I will stick my neck out for, John, but what he pulled last year was just ridiculous. What he did to his adopted mother and father is just totally outrageous.
So why would you give up? But, dude, you never give up 14 unless you know for sure.
Unless you're Chicagoing, you bring in Mike Glennon. I mean,
why would you give up $14 million? If that's the last $14 million you ever make in the NFL, I'm getting every penny of it. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it back. I'm taking it because I signed for that and I earned it, and it's my money. Now, if you want to cut me, but I want my $14 million.
The only way I'm leaving that on the table is some girl won the Powerball and she tells me, "Come on, I'm going to marry you."
I just don't understand it. So now, if he does sign with somebody, we all know it's not going to be for. It's going to be for monopoly play money. It's not going to be for anything. It's going to be a make good deal. It's going to be incentive laden. So he's basically done as far as the NFL quarterback. At least if he had that $14 million, something might have been able to be worked out with another team or whatever. Now he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have anything. He has what he has.
Hugh Jackson screaming when he was at the Oakland Raiders to draft a kid. They did not do it. Hugh Jackson sitting up at Cleveland. We have no interest in Colin Kaepernick. Woody Johnson, owner/ambassador to Europe of the New York Jets, gives marching orders before he goes across the pond. You sign this guy, I'm swimming back over here and firing you.
So, mentioning Hugh Jackson, mentioning he wants nothing to do with Brock Osweiler, wants nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick, cut RG3. So what are they doing? Are they going to draft their quarterback now? What's Cleveland's quarterback? They still don't have a quarterback, really, do they?
JG, and they're going to be foolish, and they're going to give Bill everything that they got in their cupboard.
Who's that?
Garoppolo. He's going to end up in Cleveland.
They're going to make the trade?
Bill wants Reuben Foster so bad, it is ridiculous. But Bill is playing poker right now. I bet you Bill walks out with the number 12 this year, at least 2 number 2s, and a number 1 next year from the Cleveland Browns if they want Garoppolo.
Well,
Would I pay that?
What do they have to lose? I mean, they have gazillion draft picks. Even if they give up so they're not going to give up the number 12. They give up the number 12, not the number. They still have the number 2. They still have a ton of draft picks for this draft, and they get a quarterback. Now, whether this kid is the answer, time will tell. But at least you're going to feel better about the quarterback situation. If that's the guy you really want, and you don't know what you're going to get in the draft from this quarterback class, or next year, you say you want the USC quarterback. Well, there's no guarantee. Maybe you don't get him next year. Then what?
The whole thing is,
give up the number 12 and a second round pick and get Garoppolo.
The whole thing that holds up on that, John, is them sitting down with Garoppolo. So, they have to ask for permission to negotiate with the guy first, because I'm not going to give away anything in my pocket if this guy's only going to come in for 1 year. But meanwhile, if I'm the Cleveland Browns right now and I look at my roster, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do, even if I got Garoppolo in here, to put anything of a semblance on the field. Me, I do the typical thing if I'm Cleveland right now. I'm acting like General Patton. I'm tanking it. I'm tanking it because I could walk away with Darnold from USC next year, who's the best quarterback I've seen since Elway.
Okay, so you tank it. You get your pick next year, and you just bring in a slew of more draft picks and talk more Moneyball talk. So that sounds like the strategy. And you just throw some.
John, they can't do what they did last year. If you look at their draft picks last year, the guys they took in the first round, nobody else would have taken until the second round, and so forth and so forth. So they paid a high price for average talent. They said they had 12 guys make the team. I see 2 starters out of the whole thing, and even with the 2 starters, it's buyer beware. The defensive end, Agba, he's the type of guy that all he does is get to the quarterback, and he didn't do that too well last year anyway. And then you got Coleman, but I'm looking at a guy that's 5'9" and also has had, fragile bones going back to his Baylor days. And then they played a ridiculous amount of money to Kenny Britt. I mean, you take Kenny Britt and you take Brandon Marshall, and you probably will find the 2 biggest venoms in a locker room that you will find in the wide receiver position in the NFL.
So as we wrap up this John Harris podcast on the airnetwork.net, Dave, prediction on Connor Barwin, where will he end up? The edge rusher that the Steelers desperately need, where's he going to end up? Where's he going to play next year?
If I had to take him to a racetrack right now and put down on my trifecta, I would say Rams, Steelers, Titans.
Not good news for the Steelers fans. So we'll follow that and see what happens with that. What should we be looking ahead to? I know you've got league meetings coming up. You're going to be going to some of those next week out there in Arizona. What should we be looking for either at the meetings or lead into the meetings as far as free agency?
I think what you're going to see going into this thing is that you're going to be having a lot of June 1st talk. I think what they're going to realize is that, hey, Joe Blow is not going to renegotiate his deal. We're coming up on the draft over here. Time for us to start designating guys. We're going to see a lot of older veteran names starting to pop up on the board there.
Okay. We're looking forward to there. I think we're going to try to squeeze you in before you head out to the league meetings. Dave T. Thomas, the great Dave T. Thomas, NFL guru, scouting guru, draft guru. Stay tuned to the John Harris podcast on the Air Network. We're going to have him on as much as we can. Dave, thanks so much. Have a great rest of the week. Have fun out at the league meetings next week. We'll be talking to you soon.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of the John Harris Podcast. Join us again next week for John Harris exclusively on the airnetwork.net.